Community is a beautiful and wonderful thing. And because I have a beautiful and wonderful friendship with Chanetta, and when I had heard about what happened, of course, I needed to reach out to her, and I find it ironic that she shared a voicemail this evening, because usually I get, the voicemail is full. Amen? Yeah, I tell you. So I know for sure the Holy Spirit was working even back on June 3rd to allow that voicemail to get through. And those of you who've tried to call Chanetta know for sure you have seen the act of the Holy Spirit. But I called and I reached out to Chanetta and I just asked, what can I do for you? And she said, I'll let you know, I'm putting the order of worship together. And then she sent me a text later and said, can you just come and sit in the front row with me? Well, of course I can. Not planning to do anything else other than to sit and help my friend. But I am glad to be here because I am always glad to be with this congregation, a sister congregation to our own church. And what a lovely, lovely friendship that has come over the years. Today, this weekend, we celebrate the men of God in our lives, and I see some of my colleagues here, some who are so trusted to me and valued, men who lead congregations. And I'm so glad for the work that they have and glad to see their faces here. I said, I think to Steve that I think we may have a quorum for Presbyterian. Yes, Mr. Clerk? But to be able to come and to support one another. And I have very special men in my life. 4 very, very special ones in particular. Aside from my uncles and cousins and other friends and colleagues, I have 4 very special ones. I am blessed to be the mother of 3 boys, and I have a wonderful husband, Alan. Men who challenge me sometimes, men who comfort me always, who walk by my side. They say that there is a special place in heaven for mothers of all boys. But for my husband, who is a magnificent role model for my 3 sons in how to not just treat women, but to treat everyone. Those of you who know Alan, and I know some of you know him well and long, know that there is not another man of both courage and humbleness out there. Someone who would do anything for you without you even asking. And he is a role model for my sons and for our church and for the lives that he touched as now a retired Anaheim firefighter. He was that firefighter that everyone looked to and wanted to be like Alan. He did not need to preach the gospel for lives to be changed in the Anaheim Fire Department. He just had to be him. And for my 3 beautiful boys, Spencer and Carter and Calvin, the ones who push my assumptions, the ones who come to me with their questions, the ones who love me most of the time. They are wonderful men of God. One who is courageous enough to stand in front of congregations and lead worship. Another, although shy and intimidated sometimes, has taken up the work of working with youth. And the last, who is so charismatic that he will someday lead people. I just hope it's the right direction. But I am blessed, as I know you are, as you think about those those special people in your lives, those who are filled with the gospel so much that it just pours out into all the souls that they meet, caregivers who want to help. I am reminded this week of a couple of members in our congregation. We have a gentleman, John Clay, long-term member who has had lung cancer and other ailments and has been fighting and battling. And he just has so much to share with you all the time. If you go to visit him, it will not be a short visit. But he is an avid fisherman, and he has been working through these treatments for cancer. And one of the young men of our church, one of a new father in our church, gave up some family plans to take John Clay fishing last week. The one thing that John just loves to do. And here is this young man of our church who just said, you know what? I'm going to go fishing with John Clay. That's what we do with our generations now, is we mix them together and we have the young and the old mentoring one another. I'm reminded of another couple members of our church, one a longtime member, someone who's been passionate about his faith, and another new coming into our church who is suffering from ALS and has been seeking the Lord but couldn't find that place until he came to our church and was received by our congregation as part of our family. And now this other member of our church, someone who is a pillar of faith, goes and meets with him regularly. And they share together and they're mutually inspired by one another. And it is a glorious thing to see that develop. Tomorrow I'm planning on preaching the story of Jesus and the disciples out on the boat and Jesus calming the storm. And after the incident, the tragedy of Wednesday, I kept thinking about how it feels like we're in this squall. How the poison of racism has stirred these waves. And I confess that sometimes, like the disciples, I lose faith and I struggle. And Jesus calls out to me and says, Lissa, you of little faith, because what I witnessed after Wednesday was the calming of the storm by forgiveness, by Jesus' word to forgive. Those words of forgiveness from those victims' families. Words that I don't know I could have found. They could have been reactive. They could have, and I would have been bitter and angry and wanted revenge. But instead, that storm of racism that came pouring in was set calm by families sharing Christ instead of revenge, and I thank them for that. And so this day we gather together in a family of faith, those of us knitted together in ways that we cannot possibly imagine. Some by the men of our lives who have mentored us and shared with us and guided us. And some by our brothers and sisters who have accepted us for who we are and set aside prejudices. And so together we can glorify God. Amen.